Do you think they make any self-help productivity books for octopuses who were alive during the ancient Roman time period?
I don't know, but if they do, I need to read that. That is so niche, and you guys know I love so niche. Hi everyone, Rosie here. Welcome back to my channel, and I hope you will all join me in welcoming a guest, my partner, Bear. If you saw my June TBR, my July TBR, Time is Passing, which will be linked up here, you'll know that this month I had him pick 3 books for me to read, and I'm gonna vlog my reactions. We're gonna have a little chat about it. I don't know how this format's gonna work out. We're gonna give it a try, and hopefully it'll be fun. I've just finished this afternoon the first book that he picked for me, and that was Hyperfocus by Chris Bailey. I'll grab it and read the whole long subtitle. So it is Hyperfocus, How to Be More Productive in a World of Distraction. First thing I need to tell you guys about this book may not be meaningful to the greater community, but struck me as the greatest evidence for a greater power in the world that I've seen yet, possibly, which is that
Where are you going with this?
You'll see. This book, the first line, has the author sitting having breakfast in a diner in Kingston, Ontario. And this is significant because we met in Kingston, Ontario. That's where we met. That's where we got together. We did our masters together there. And we ate breakfast at diners often.
Might have even eaten in the same
Exactly.
one.
I was like, we ate at many different diners in Kingston. So we could have eaten at this diner where this guy was writing part of this book. So, I mean...
It's fate.
It clearly was fate that it's the one you chose for me. Let's actually talk about the productivity stuff, which is, I think, why you asked me to read this book, right?
Yeah.
This book, I thought it was all going to be about focus. And to be fair, I did think this was a rather pointed choice on his part. Partly, you do like nonfiction books about productivity, right?
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
a lot of the audiobooks you listen to.
Yeah, or just general nonfiction, yeah.
Yeah, so that was of interest, but then I'm a very distracted person. I'm that person who's doing 5 things at once all the time, always on my phone. So I thought maybe there was a bit of a pointedness there.
No, I would never.
You would never?
Maybe I would.
I'll admit, I went in kind of not sure how this was gonna go, and ready to be annoyed. I'll be perfectly honest. But maybe it's just that I read this at the right time. I've been going through a phase of extreme lack of focus for the last couple months and just being burnt out and not feeling my most productive in general. But this was actually so helpful. And maybe it was just the right time, but there's actually a lot of stuff where I'm it's hard to say, but I've got to try changing what I'm doing.
Cool. So it resonated with you?
Yeah, 100%. I think the first half resonated with me a lot more than it would resonate with you because I don't think you have that much trouble focusing. Your issue is interruptions like meetings.
Yeah, it's rough. I would say it's correct, yeah.
Yeah, when you have time to focus on work, you're really just I can get so into this.
Most of the time, yeah.
Yeah, whereas for me, I have loads of time and no meetings and just find it so hard to make myself actually focus on a task. So a lot of really good advice, a lot of really practical advice. Because I mentioned in my TBR that I hate the stereotypical productivity thing of only check your email once a day.
Right, and most people can't do that, yeah.
So yeah, he does mention that. Email is way more distracting than it's worth, and we don't have to be available by email 24/7, most of us. But I really liked that he phrased it in the sense of, for most people, it's going to be more practical to close your email application for an hour or 2 while you work. He's not saying never use email except at 11:07 a.m. every day for 15 minutes. He's saying, hey, your colleagues get on just fine when you're in a meeting for an hour. So you can close your email just fine for an hour to just focus. Right. And it was stuff like that where I thought it was a lot more nuanced and practical.
Okay.
As opposed to pie in the sky, I'm a freelancer who just does freelance stuff and works for myself.
Or I run my own company, I can do whatever I want, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's cool, I'm glad that was useful. Yeah. Did he go into what is the ideal amount of time to be in that state?
That's one of the elements where I really appreciated the nuance, which was very much look, it's gonna depend.
Okay.
It's going to depend on your role. It's going to depend on what you need to do. You need to figure out how much is right for your job, because flow state is really good for focused, like, I just need to sit alone and get work done type work, but it's not useful for collaborative type work.
It's true. And I guess depending on what you do more of, you need to figure out what that is for you.
Exactly. The first half of the book, where he talks about hyperfocus, felt very much like, no, it was good. I needed the reminder. I'm glad to have read it. Absolutely going to be implementing some of his techniques, but it didn't feel like anything that I hadn't already heard, or that I couldn't have known in myself I should be doing. But the part of the book that I was actually most like surprised, or frankly interested in actually, was the second half, which was called Scattered Focus.
Oh, okay.
I think Hyperfocus makes for a great title of a book, obviously. But the second half is all about saying, hey, we just talked about how to focus and how to like get your brain on one task, how to train yourself, how to set up your environment for this. Now we're going to talk about why you should also let your mind wander.
I guess that kind of makes sense though, because like you can't focus for too long, otherwise you just kind of get distracted, burnt out. Your brain needs a break. So I guess being intentional about that too.
Exactly. Your brain gets tired, your brain gets burnt out. Also, you're good at different types of work. Hyperfocus is really good for when you know the task ahead of you and you just need to like...
get it done.
Get through the thing. Whereas scatter focus is really what you want for when you need to like problem solve or think creatively or think outside the box.
Okay.
It's when you sort of let your mind zoom back from like the specific thing and wander around and make new connections and stuff.
Yeah, I've never heard the term scatter focus, but that totally makes...
I think he made up hyperfocus and scatter focus for this book. Or maybe hyperfocus was No, that's wrong. Hyperfocus is used within I think it was the ADHD community. He's brought that into more... like
mainstream terminology, No, that makes sense.
Scattered focus is totally made up, I think.
Fair enough. But the concept makes sense, I guess. Yeah, like you need the capacity for creative thinking and also just like intentionally doing a specific thing.
And do you want to know why I think that section is incredibly relevant to you in your life? So for context, Bear is currently doing some undergrad courses in the evening to switch fields a little, or to support the switch of fields that he has already done. And he's coming up on a final next week, I think. Yeah, next week. And, studying gets old, especially when you're doing it in the evening on the weekends. You can't just cram for 3 days and then write a test. It's been like weeks now, and you've been getting a bit burnt out, right?
Yeah.
A bit discouraged. One of the points that Bailey makes in this book is that scatter focus is essential for allowing our minds to rest. And if we try and focus or hyper focus all the time, it's like that uses up a certain resource. I'm not explaining this well.
No, I get what you mean. Yeah, you need the both. One kind of recharges the other, sort of. Yeah.
Just like you wouldn't get stronger if you just did gym time like 5 hours a day every single day. Your muscles need time to rest. Right,
and you need like good nutrition, sleep, all that stuff too. Yeah, totally.
So the scatter focus, or the letting your mind wander time, is when we get that like recharge. And this part was actually so relevant to me as well, because I knew I was lacking in hyperfocus in my life, but I didn't realize that I was lacking in true not consuming anything time.
Right. Like creative thinking or like creative work? Or...
No, like time when you're just letting your brain wander and like maybe you're going for a walk and you're not listening to anything and you're just like taking time to be with your thoughts.
That is important, yeah. I hadn't really thought about it explicitly, but no, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, because it's when our brain can just look inward, it doesn't have to focus on anything outside, that it gets to like process and make new connections and like see things in different ways. And yeah, that's something that I really don't have in my life and I really need to work to include, because all of these symptoms he was describing of like tiredness and lack of focus and feeling burnt out, and I'm like, this explains why I've been feeling burnt out for like 2 months, even though there's no reason for me to feel burnt out.
Yeah, you never let your mind wander.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
He had a whole section about how this scatter focus and mindlessness, or not just mindlessness, but like taking time to explicitly not be thinking about anything. is really important for improving our productivity overall. Also, sleep. I feel so vindicated because have I not said forever that, like, people need to sleep more? And the reason I've gotten such good grades my entire life is because I've always slept the night before an exam. I've never stayed up all night studying.
It's true. That is good advice.
Yeah. So next time he's feeling grouchy about how much he has to study, I can be like, well, have you taken a mindfulness break? Have you gotten enough sleep? Remember, it's the best thing you can do for your productivity.
So I guess to action that, then it's explicitly just, I don't know, I'm probably different for other people, like going for walks without listening to anything, meditating, sleeping, that sort of thing.
Yeah, for the scatter focus, he has 3 types he develops, but like the one he really recommends is do something pleasant but habitual. So something where you don't need to think about what you're doing at all. Yeah, going for a walk in the sunshine when it's nice out and it's pleasant to be outside. You don't need to think about walking around your neighborhood.
True.
And it's positive so you don't start feeling grumpy and being like, I hate scrubbing the toilet.
Right. That makes sense.
And that gives you, like, mental ability to zoom out a bit.
So it's like a subconscious thing, kind of? Like you...
Well, it's subconscious, but you're paying attention to it.
Okay.
It's not just like let your mind wander. It's let your mind wander and pay attention to where it's wandering to.
Okay.
Because you can just let your mind wander and not remember any of it, but this is sort of let your mind wander and go, oh, wait.
Why am I wondering about that? Yeah.
Ooh, that's an interesting thing to think about. I should take note of that.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
It was really cool. The only complaint I have about the book comes from the second last chapter, which is about the information we choose to consume. And I just think he didn't have space in this chapter to do it with nuance. There's a lot of nonfiction books about history and science good because factual, and factual is inherently more valuable. Right. Reality TV bad. And he literally calls stuff like trashy, and I'm like, look, I know that that's a term that's used and embraced by some people, but I think if you're going to speak derogatorily about it, I don't like the use of the term.
That's a fair criticism.
It's the sort of thing where that chapter could have been a book of its own. How different forms of media bring different things to us. Right.
I guess like if reality TV is something you enjoy, you're not watching reality TV for the same reason you would read a science book about something to learn it, right? So I guess they're trying to do 2 different things.
They are, but also just because a science book has facts that are useful knowledge for you to gain doesn't mean those are actually more useful than, say, the thoughts or, you might have about a certain subject because of a TV show. Yeah,
that's true. Or even if it just lets you turn your brain off for a while.
That was another element that I thought wasn't really addressed is like, you're very much focused on here are things you can do to work out your brain or like improve your brain, but like the relaxation element is important too.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Well, I would kind of almost argue no matter what you do, if you do it too intensely, you're still gonna burn out, right?
Yeah, exactly. So overall, it was really good. I will 100% be putting some of these practices into use in my life and trying to enact some of the changes that he suggests. And I think you should read it.
Okay.
I think you would actually find it really valuable.
Okay. I think I will. You've convinced me.
So are you happy with your first choice for me to read?
Yeah, I am. No, I'm really glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, I kind of want to read it myself now.
Well, like I said, I think you should, and thank you for making me read it. That was actually a really good choice, and I never would have read this on my own, let's be real. Okay, time to talk about Soul of an Octopus by Montgomery. This is the second book that you picked for me to read. Well, I'm not sure what order you picked them in. This is one of the 3 books that you picked for me, and I have now read it, so I can tell you all about octopuses.
Let's learn about octopuses.
Yes, and you have to promise to ask lots of questions so it's not just me talking this time.
Okay, I'll try my best.
Yes, I know you'll do a good job.
Is it octopuses or octopi?
It is octopuses. That was like in the first chapter of the book. Someone actually left I don't know if it was a funny or a rude comment on my TBR saying like, I can't believe you would say octopi. I'm like, chill. Not that big of a deal. It is actually octopuses.
Greek versus Latin, right?
Yeah, but octopi is just so cute. Anyway, that's not the point of the book. It's all really about how octopuses have consciousness and, like, as it says, souls of a type, and it's kind of a weird book to describe. My friend Katie, you've probably seen some of her videos, she has cool, like, colored hair.
Okay, yeah, I think so.
Yeah. You'd know where to see her. She said it was like a surprisingly memoir when she read it. And yeah, it was. I thought it was going to be just science about octopuses. It's weirdly a lot about the author and her experiences learning about octopuses and the various people she meets while learning about octopuses. But it also doesn't tell us anything about her. It was a very strange experience.
So this anonymous woman and her journey while learning about octopuses.
Yeah, it's this weird sort of feeling where I feel like this woman has just spent 300 pages telling the reader about herself, telling the reader all about her experiences, but I don't feel like I got to know her at all. It was very odd like that. The octopus side, I really enjoyed. There was so much cool octopus facts in this, and the way they're described, I feel like she really does convey the personality of each individual octopus, because it's not just like she researches a bunch of science about octopuses and then like tells us about it. She gets really involved with I think it's called the New England Aquarium in Boston. We need to go on a road trip to Boston so I can go to this aquarium because it sounds so cool.
So does each octopus like have its own personality?
Yeah. So she spends a lot of time over the span of years at the aquarium interacting with the various octopuses and not just like looking at them through glass, but like touching them and like feeding them and observing them and all this stuff. And they do have personalities and like behave differently and stuff. It's really, really cool.
I saw some YouTube videos a while ago that they were like smart enough to learn like the patterns of like when it's, the museum is closing, they can sneak out of their tank and get up to all kinds of mischief.
Yeah, the all kinds of mischief they get up to is so cool to read about. Or like, they love to play with toys, and I think that's just the cutest thing. And people are always like having to design like tricky like games for them to play to keep them occupied because they're so smart that if you just put them in a tank with nothing to do,
they just get bored and
they get bored and get up to mischief. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like there's this one octopus, and I think in Seattle, and it had some toy that like was a whole bunch of interconnected pipes, and they thought it was going to try and like crawl through the pipes sort of thing. But instead it decided it was far more fun to just unscrew them from each other. And then it would hand them to the sea anemone that shared its tank.
Aww.
So it like unscrew a part of the toy and then like hand it off to this creature that doesn't even have a brain.
So it's actually very cute. I guess speaking of crawling through pipes, I heard something else too where I forget what part it is, but it's some part on their like main body. They can squeeze through any hole that is wide enough in diameter to fit that part. I forget if it was their eyeball or like
I think maybe their beak, because I get the impression that their beak is like the only solid part of them.
Might have been that.
Yeah, one of the octopuses in the aquarium where this author spends a lot of time is like 40-pound octopus. I can't remember how, it was a very large octopus, like big.
Right.
And it escaped out of its tank through a 1 by 2.5 inch hole.
Wow.
And this thing had an arm span of like 10 feet or something. It was a huge animal, and it escaped out of this tiny, tiny little hole.
It's true. They can squish very small.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Apparently, it's a whole thing of like designing octopus-proof tanks.
I'll see if I can find a video if you want to put it in the description of your video. But there was this one on YouTube of this on a fishing boat or something. An octopus by accident got into the fishing net. So the fishermen were trying to let the octopus go. But the octopus kind of found its own way out, and there was just this little tiny hole on the side of the boat, and they didn't want to interfere with it because it looked like it was and it ended up making its own way out because it saw the hole, climbed through the hole, and jumped back into the ocean. Yeah, I would love to see that video, and if we find it, we'll put it down below. Yeah, so the octopus stuff in this was so cute, and I think that part was so much fun. I didn't love the people part. There's something about the way certain non-fiction authors describe people that just makes me feel weirdly uncomfortable. Like there's this sort of, I'm trying to give a sketch of this person in 2 sentences type description of someone that if they're a fiction character, okay, maybe it comes across as a bit cringe, but whatever. But when you know that it's a real person, I can't think of any off the top of my head from this book, but you know, she has said this and this about her personality and this about how she looks, and I'm just like, it just feels weird. Whereas you just want to be learning more about octopuses.
Kind of. Like if I want to read about people, I want to really read about the person.
Right.
I find the brief interaction stuff kind of weird sometimes. I don't know.
So you sort of want, she works at the aquarium, now more information about octopuses.
I would have liked it to be, it's hard because the way she presents the information in this book totally makes sense and you really get a feel for the octopuses, and that was really cool. I really, really enjoyed that. The way she describes a lot of the people she meets and talks to felt kind of invasive. I'm sure all these people had to sign off on the manuscript and how they're represented before the book was published and stuff. I hope so, at least. There's a little bit of, I feel like you're taking a real complex human being and smushing them down into 3 character traits and making them seem really like a caricature of a person. Not in a mocking them way, just in you don't have time to really develop them as a person, but this is a real person who exists in the world.
Okay, I get what you're
saying. It's really hard to explain, and I don't fully get it myself. It's just something that I find myself noticing in nonfiction books this, where the author interacts with a lot of different people and tries to describe them to us.
So I guess what would be the alternative? Just cut out those descriptions, more don't either go in depth or don't, as opposed to.
It's a really good question. I don't know what the solution is.
I was thinking more octopuses.
Yes, well, that's part of the issue. I loved the octopus part. The parts that were octopus science were fantastic. The parts where she's talking to scientists who are octopus scientists were so cool, but it wasn't organized around that type of material. That type of material was worked into her discovery of Octopus's story. So it's kind of hard to talk just about the octopuses because they're the theme of the book, but also there's a lot of stuff about them, but not really. It's a very hard to explain book.
Did you like it overall? Was it an enjoyable read?
It was fine. I think I'd be more interested if I was going to do this again in the future to read a actually book about the octopuses. This would not have been my first choice. But to be fair, it's not his fault. I bought this book years ago.
There's only one book about octopuses.
Exactly. And
that one.
I bought it and it sounded interesting, and I'm glad that I did read it. It's just that it wasn't what I would have wanted it to be.
Well, I hope you learned at least a few interesting
I definitely learned a few interesting things. So many interesting facts about them.
Do you want to share the one about their arms? 2/3 of their nervous system is in their arms.
Yeah, that's basically the fact. About 2/3 of their nervous system is in their arms. And actually, if one of their tentacles gets detached, it'll just continue on like normal for several hours, just doing tentacly stuff, what it would normally do, except it's no longer attached to the main octopus.
It's got a mind of it. It's totally autonomous. That's
exactly,
crazy. Yeah.
exactly.
And all of the nerves to control their changing skin color and stuff are localized throughout the body. So it's not they're with us how we have a brain where we have to think about all of our movements. They just kind of adapt to their surroundings without thinking about it, is the way I've heard it described.
That seems to be the case.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you learned some cool things anyway. Sorry that it wasn't the best book.
No, you have nothing to apologize for. It was still interesting. This last update is going to be sort of on the fly because Bear needs to make himself some dinner and I need to film this clip so I can edit the vlog because we're going on vacation in a couple days. So, it might be kind of shaky, but we're going to work with it. And this is actually way more natural, right? Usually, if I'm going to tell you about a book...
You'll get the unscripted experience.
Exactly. Not that the other ones have been scripted, but we don't usually sit together and, stare at a camera and talk about books. Today, we're talking about Europe Before Rome, a site-by-site tour of prehistoric Europe, or something along those lines, by T. Douglas Price. I should have checked this on the book before filming this, but, it'll be in the description if that's wrong. Anyways, this is about... basically what the title says. It's a history of Europe before Rome from an archaeological perspective. So everything is very much grounded in the archaeology because most of these are pre-literate societies and pre-literate cultures. So we don't exactly have texts from them or anything like that. It's fascinating. I thought this was going to be super academic. I really thought it was going to be very dry, very academic, feels like someone's PhD dissertation. And it was not. It was not at all. It's a very slow read. And actually, I'll admit, I have not yet finished it. He knows that, but you guys don't yet. I have about an hour left of the book, but as I said, need to film this clip, and I've read the vast majority of it, so I feel like I can talk about it.
So it goes way back. It's not like just before Rome. It's like a million years before
Absolutely.
Rome.
I think it starts 1.3 million years ago with the first or some of the first archaeological evidence of humans, or they're actually... I don't even think it starts with Homo sapiens. It starts with, like, the various predecessors to Homo sapiens who lived in Europe. And then we move through time and see as, like, Neanderthal take over from whatever came before Neanderthal, and, like, how Homo sapiens moved into Europe, and, like, how that transition worked.
I'm gonna do an awkward thing and change my mind in the middle of your clip about I want a few extra vegetables.
You should have yes. I'm sure the viewers will all support you in having.
For your viewers.
No, I'm sure the viewers will all support you in having extra vegetables. So yeah, it starts way far back and then it progresses through time. And so, like, for some context, the Indo-Europeans who Google them if you guys haven't seen them. I'll try and leave a link down below, but we've talked about them before, right? They only show up, I think it's like 4,000 or 5,000 years ago.
Wow.
And that's like 50 or 60% of the way through the book.
Wow. Okay.
Oh yeah, it's like...
So the focus is on, like, very far back when, like, early humans were starting to...
It's not equally focused. It's not like it puts more weight on that, but it does travel way far back. We don't start with the Bronze Age I can't remember any of the timelines from this, but we start way, way far back and then see how things progress. And one of the elements that I think is done so well is the author explains really, really well how a certain finding in a grave can be interpreted a certain way, or in a settlement, or wherever you're finding these archaeological things, how you get from the object to the interpretation, and then from the interpretation to what it means about society. So one of the things it talks about is how prior to agriculture, like, graves were pretty uniform. You didn't tend, I think I'm interpreting this correctly, don't come at me if you're like a scholar, but graves tended to be very much like, basically everyone has the same stuff in them. And then as we move into an agricultural society and that sort of thing, we start to see a disparity where a small number of graves have a vast majority of the grave goods and the wealth.
So income inequality doesn't start until agriculture.
That's
I guess that kind of
sort
makes
of
sense.
what it seems like when you're in a hunter-gatherer society, it has to be cooperative.
Yeah, and I guess where do you store your excess wealth?
Exactly. But then once you start having agriculture and more advanced trade, you get these incredible wealth stores.
And then I guess did they go into, like, how did the agricultural societies determine who got status and who didn't?
No.
Or was this not really
That's
discussed?
where that's where the archaeological part really comes in. Like, it doesn't get into history that we can't tell from archaeology.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
we can't know from archaeology why certain families got really wealthy or why certain traders were super or something like that. We can just know what it says about society in general.
Right. You can only speculate the mechanism, but...
Exactly.
Interesting.
But another thing I think you'll find really cool is that the various techniques they use are so fascinating. The enamel on your teeth is formed when you're a baby, and it's very location specific. So, like, the enamel on your teeth would tell people where you were born, like, geographically. Wow. So you can do things like, if you study the teeth of people in an area, you can tell if they moved there from somewhere else and were part of a migration.
Oh, wow.
And for example, if you find children with enamel from a different area, you can tell that when these people were buried was part of a migration, because this person was like 5 years old, was born somewhere else.
That's crazy. So is that just due to, like, the minerals that were in the water?
I think so. There's certain, like, minerals that you can look at, and I don't really understand the science of it, honestly, but it's really, really cool.
Very interesting.
And there's all sorts of stuff like this. After we finish filming, I'll get my Kindle and, like, pull out a whole bunch of notes that I have that were just so fascinating.
You know, the viewers won't know if you just...
I know, but I have to go upstairs and then I'll start filming again. We're already at 7.5 minutes.
Okay, so we'll cut out that part then, otherwise
well, I might leave it in.
Very silly.
No. But another element that I found really interesting in this book and that I thought was really well done is the author doesn't try and come down conclusively where there's speculation. Because a lot of these things we don't know. there's different theories about what happened or what was going on or whatever, but there's no answer. So whenever there's debate, the author very much like presents both sides and is like, hey, here's the argument for this, here's the argument for that. He might say, you know, the field in general leans towards this, or yeah, you can go get your food. Or I personally tend to fall on this side, but he doesn't try and make it seem as if everything is super concrete and fixed and like certain.
That's good.
He's confident in leaving uncertainty in this. And I think that's actually really, really cool.
Oh, certainly, yeah. Well, it sounds like some of that stuff would be so incredibly hard to just be like, no, we're 100% sure about this obscure detail.
Exactly. Anyway, you've got your dinner ready. Should we wrap this up?
Sure. So, okay, so overall, what did you think of Europe Before Rome?
I loved
Was Rome a good addition? Or?
Haven't quite got there yet, but no, I thought this was so interesting, and it's slow, but it's way more readable than I thought it would be. Like, it's not a book that you're gonna, you know, whiz through in an afternoon, but it's also not challenging to read. Like I've said before on this channel, I don't have a science background, I definitely don't have an archaeology background. I found this very understandable. It was very accessibly written and fascinating, even if it's very slow. Right, but it was really good.
Cool. Right on. I'm glad you liked it.
I really did. And I guess we should wrap up the vlog as well.
So, so what did you think of my picks?
I thought they were interesting. And 2 out of the 3 were really good. Hyperfocus and Europe Before Rome. Soul of an Octopus was okay, but there's no way you could have known that from the blurb. So we're not going to hold it against him.
Pick you a better octopus book next time.
Yes, because we're definitely having him back to do more picking. And you'll have to put up with being in vlogs more again. Yeah, so I really like these. What did you guys think? Do you think they're interesting picks? Would you guys pick up any of these? Who do you trust to pick your TBR for you? Let me know down below. And if you like this video, please give it a like down below. If you'd like to see more of my videos, please hit subscribe. And thank you for watching.